And my first big job a year after graduation was MSNBC in New York. So back to New York, back to the East Coast, 30 Rock, like famous building where they film, Saturday Night Live, and like it's right across the street from Radio City Music Hall. It's like this like historic, like really famous building, massive, 35, 40-story building. And I was a producer there for like 3 years. So what I did was I'd write news copy for anchors to read on the air. And I produced a segment, so I would cut sound bites. I would like look for footage and, kind of package it together and make it like TV friendly. But again, it felt like kind of like short films I was doing. It was like I'm taking all the media, all the sound bites, putting it together, writing a script, and then watching the anchor read it was to me like, this is an actor performing my dialogue kind of thing, right? So I did that for years, and I remember like, again, I wasn't happy. Like I had a very well-paying job, and it was like
You mentioned that. Sorry, you mentioned that, but can you be a bit more specific? How well paying was this job? Working in TV, is the money good? You said like you had a good job, and you kind of what were we looking at?
So just for comparison, right? So like all the print jobs I have been doing, so print newspapers, like traditional, I was 22, 23 at the time, I think. And I was making maybe like, if I made like 30 grand a year, that was a lot. And then in news, pretty quickly, I was making double that, like within my first few months there. I was like in the 60s. And then the path, like, so it's like, I was a segment producer. So like, those are the guys that write the copy for the anchors. Then there's line producer, there's supervising producer, then there's executive producer. But on that ladder, that climbing that corporate ladder, you can, within a few years, you can be making six figures, like, like well into the six figures, like over the course of, maybe like within like 5 to 7 years, you're making really good money. It was there and it was laid out for me. And it was like, this is the path. If you want to continue on this path is yours for as long as you want it. Right. And so, I had this really like difficult moment because I'm like, I know as far as my bank account is concerned, this is a good move for me. Like, stay here. You're already proven you can do the job really well. People here really like you. They like your work. Just ride this on out. And I just was like thinking about, if I stay here for the rest of my professional life, am I going to be happy? Am I going to what's that going to feel like? What is that going to do to me? And I was like, I was a little bit like scared of like, am I crazy for leaving this really like prestigious job that everyone's like, oh, you're lucky to have this job, right? And then I think that I couldn't reconcile that with like how I just felt about myself and the life that I wanted. And so everyone in my life, I was afraid to tell them what I was thinking about doing. I was thinking about leaving, just quitting and saying, I'm going to write movies and figure it out. But I didn't want to tell anyone because I thought they were going to laugh at me. And then I met my girlfriend. She was actually an intern at MSNBC. So that's how we met. And she shadowed me for like, her first couple weeks there on the job. And it's funny because like when you go into that place, like especially with the new people coming in, the new hires, it's this historic building and there's like that wow factor. Like people are coming in like, oh my God, I'm at 30 Rock. This is amazing. She came in and she was like, yeah, whatever. It's just a newsroom. Like, like that did not faze her at all. And so like we started talking and started becoming like friendly. And, eventually we started to date. And like I told her like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving this place. And she's like, oh my God, good. Like leave. That place is not for you. Like you have so much more to offer than that place will allow you to offer. And so I was like, are you sure? And like, and because everyone else, I was terrified of telling them, but I was like, I told her, and then she was like, yeah, like that's the move. And so that kind of gave me like the little boost of confidence, that just enough that I needed to like go over that hump. And then I was like, all right, I started plotting and scheming. And then I was like, all right, like, okay, we go to LA, we'll do this. I'll empty out my bank account. We'll figure out like where we're going to live and da-da-da. And then I remember I turned in my letter of resignation. So like I typed up a formal letter, and everyone was like, wait, you're quitting? Like, what are you doing? At the time, I was working on 3 shows at the same time. And like that, no one else at the network was doing that. It was just, I was doing like the only guy, because like they liked me. They were like, oh, Larry can help out on this show and come in for the Saturday shows too. And so I had 3 different teams that were like, fans of mine. And they were like, where are you going? Like, why would you do that? And I was like, I think I want to write movies. And they were like, you're going to do what? I I was like, I'm going to write movies in LA. And they were like, do you know anyone? Do you have an agent? I was like, I don't know anybody, but I'm going to figure it out. And so I handed him my letter. And then I remember the HR woman, she was like, okay, at the time I was like 28, I think. And she's like, all right, well, if you're going to do it, I guess now is the time. You're young. You don't have a mortgage. You don't have any kids. Like, go ahead and, best of luck to you. And then a week to the day from when I handed in that letter, I found out Natalie, my girlfriend, now wife, was pregnant. And so I was like, oh my God, I just quit this job and I'll get a baby on the way. Like, as I was freaking out. And then, but by this time I had told my family that I was quitting already. And then when they found out that she was pregnant, they were like, you can't go to LA now. You have to stay. Like you had that kid to worry about. And again, Natalie was the only one. She's like, no, we made a plan. Like the train's already left the station. Like we are going to go to LA. Like we'll do it. We'll figure it out together. And we went and it was scary, but we figured it out. My son was born in Santa Monica.
So let me just jump in. You said a lot there and there's loads of points I want to touch upon, but I'm going to touch upon the last point. Then we're going to talk about the LA years and then the rest. Firstly, Natalie sounds wonderful. Natalie sounds like a wonderful human. They always say, behind every great man, there's a greater woman. She sounds like a wonderful, inspirational lady herself. So thank you, Natalie, because I don't meet Larry if she doesn't give you, encourage you to take this massive leap of faith. Question for you. You found out a week later that Natalie was pregnant. Let's say you found out the day before you're going to hand the resignation letter in. Do you still hand in the letter?
Well, I think I definitely would have thought twice about it. But again, she would have been like, no, we're doing this. Because I think I convinced her too. Like, and she was also looking for a change. And it was like, I think it'd be exciting to go on this adventure with you. And she's like, and we'd only been dating for like 2 years at the time. So it was still a pretty new relationship, like kind of learning, figuring each other out. And the fact that she trusted me to say, all right, I believe in you enough and I trust you enough that I'm going to take this massive leap of faith with you. I think it spoke volumes to like who she is. And so I was like, all right, well, she believes in it. And so like, again, it gave me just enough of a boost of confidence to say, hey, I think we can figure this out.
Get to LA, Tinseltown. Is it everything you expected, hoped, wanted, dreamt of?
Well, I mean, not at first. No, I mean, not at first. No, it was very tough at first.
Because everyone goes to LA to become an actor, to become a movie star, to work in Hollywood. Everyone, it's a town as old as time. Right? Everyone does it. And funny you say that, right? So going back a little bit, when I retired from boxing, I sat with my boxing team, and we sat in the office, and I was like, right, now what's next? I was 30 years old. I was in the best physical shape of my life, of being basically blind in my left eye. And like, now what do I do? And I sat with my team, my agent Dean, who I respect and admire a lot, and we're very close. I said, I think I'm gonna be an actor. And he went, mate, that's exactly what he said. He said, mate, the world does not need another actor. And I went, but it's me. And I thought he was gonna. I thought he response. I thought he'd be like, oh yeah, if anybody can do it, you can do it. And then the kind of ultimately, like, there's something I've always, as you know, long to do. But I was young and I was healthy, and I had this. I'd created this fit, again, minus my eye, I had this really fit, healthy body, and I still hadn't scratched the itch of athleticism. Hence, I went down the professional wrestler route, which is like basically the bridge between boxing and acting. Is wrestling. It's just half sport, half acting, right? So for me, it's amazing. So I'm glad I went down this route anyway, like a little bridge maybe for the next career thereafter. But yeah, man, like you had the bottle, the balls, whatever, and it's to just go and do it, and you made that leap, and you did what a lot of people do, go to LA. How was it?
I don't know anyone, and I've got my pregnant girlfriend with me. She's like 4 months pregnant. I mean, she's really starting to show, and the whole time I'm stressing out of my mind, like how am I gonna make this work? How am I gonna support like my girlfriend and my soon to be son who's gonna be born any minute now? Like there was a ticking clock. Yeah, I felt like I was in a movie. Like I'm trying to defuse a bomb before it blows up. Like so. I remember staying like I had all my savings, and like we had enough money to last maybe a couple of months out there before finding work.
Not a long time, is it? It's not a long time.
Not at all.
Like
no,
really up against it. And LA,
Yeah,
brother,
up
as we
against
know,
it.
LA's expensive, man. I was there in November. LA's expensive. I mean, America's
So
expensive,
expensive.
but LA's expensive.
Yeah. And so we get over there, and I remember just to save money, like we were staying in some really crappy hotels, and like we must have had, I think, every other meal must have been like Denny's. It was like the diner, like cheap diner, like crappy food, and like just because it was cheap, and I'm like, I can't keep feeding like Natalie and the baby Denny's like this greasy, awful diner food. I got to figure it out. So, luckily we found an apartment. I had to lie in the application about a job that I didn't have. So, oh yeah, I have a job. Yeah, don't worry. And so I paid, like the deposit and everything. And like after I handed him the check for the first month's rent and the deposit, I had maybe like, I don't know, $500 left in the bank. So I was like, I had enough for groceries and like not much else.